do it, the more addictive it is and the funner it becomes. You know what I'm saying? It's just, well, the more fun. I'm not even sure what the right word is. I love doing YouTube, man. I enjoy it immensely. It's, for me, it's cathartic, if nothing else. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All right, let me hold on. Okay, good. So we are coming up here, my friend.
It's weird to me. It's like
All
the
right.
more you.
Sweet. All right, we are live, brother man. Brother man with a master plan. All right, cool. So
Excellent.
I should put, hold on just a second, Jason. I should put your, geez Louise. All right, let me get your YouTube channel up there so people, while we got it, people can subscribe.
Oh, excellent.
Fighting Words Financial. All right, there we go. Cool. Hold on just a second. There we go. Oh, man, dude. And then, all right, cool. Good. So let me just put that in the comment section. Hello, Don. We got some folks watching. Hold on just a second. All right, cool. So there's Jason Proctor from Fighting Words Financial is joining us to discuss his most recent video on Tesla. Hey, Jill. Battery day. All right.
Absolutely.
All right, so cool. So Jason, we'll wait for just a second while we get cracking for more people to jump on. Hey, Jill, did you get the notification this time, or did you just know that it was going to be 7 o'clock? And while we're hearing that answer, Jill's one of my moderators, Jason. How's the channel going, man? So you started your channel when?
I started my channel. I kind of dipped my toes in a little bit of December last year, like 27th to 28th.
Nope,
but
not hearing you, man.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Oh.
Okay.
While we're hearing that answer, hold on a second, Jason. I gotta. There we go. Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead. Right on. Yep, you got it.
Basically, I started in January, and where I am right now is much further along than I expected to be, and I think you have a lot to do with that. So.
Well, you got I think, how many? You got like 2,500 freaking subscribers.
Yeah. And I mean, I just hit 1,000 last month. So, I mean, it's really, the channel's really grown quite a bit. And I don't know why, when I started off, I had this arbitrary number in my head saying, oh, when I hit 2,500 subscribers, that's when I'm going to take it seriously. So now I guess I have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
It's become a real thing.
Yeah. Because you weren't taking it seriously the first 1 through 2,499 subscribers.
Exactly. So no, it's been, I mean, I guess the thing that surprised me is because it's become enormously fun, and I've really been able to indulge my nerdy side, and I've gotten, I'm diving deeper and deeper into companies and subjects and talking to them, and I found an audience, which, to be honest with you, I didn't really expect that people really wanted the deeply nerdy and technical stuff out of that. So.
It's freaking nuts, man. It's just, who would have thought, from some guy doing spreadsheets would get an audience, and that's what I do.
I've never seen a spreadsheet I didn't like.
Isn't that weird? There's something wrong with us, man. It's like a spreadsheet. I'm like, it's weird. I get it.
That's right. So.
All right. So, just, have you made any money yet?
Just a little bit. I like the 27th is when I was monetized. Yeah. So I made a couple $100 here. I'm trying to shoot for $1,000 by the end of the month. I know a lot of that has to do with all the political advertising.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, I was going to say, so my biggest by far day in revenue was yesterday. I made $350 yesterday on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
Crazy.
Nice. I think yesterday would be my best day too, but I don't know how much I made. So it all has to do with my last video.
Yeah, no, and that last, we'll still dive in that in just a second. That was so the economics of YouTube is, the fall is always most profitable, and then of course an election season is big too, because sniffy Joe Biden is advertised like crazy on my channel, so I'll take it. But it's like, there's no rhyme or reason there. So I'm looking at the views. The views, were about 20,000 views yesterday, which is on the good side for me, but not huge. I mean, back at the beginning of August, I was clocking about 44,000 for a couple of days. And I didn't make anywhere near $350. So I don't know what causes that. It's the weirdest thing.
I haven't figured that out either. And I've talked to a bunch of people, and they haven't figured it out either. So it's the magic of YouTube. All I know is I make videos, I upload them, and they pay me money, so it's not that bad.
Well, that's man. And the funny thing is, you upload videos, you get paid, and thus the incentive to upload videos. You see what I'm saying? It's amazing how that works, man. So Vinyl says you need to have 2.4 million subscribers, then you can forget financial planning. We shall see. All right. So what I wanted to talk about, Jace, is you had done a Vic. All right. Okay. So Vic, my man Vic in New York is saying it takes about 4 minutes to get the notification. So we'll hang tight for just a second. All right. So did you go into doing YouTube with you've done a lot of tests. Talk about Nicolay or whatever that is. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Nicola. Yeah, actually, that's really when my channel exploded. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I'm a little bit of a science nerd, and I'm very, data oriented, very evidence oriented. And Nicola is a company that I've been following for a while. Their whole thing is they wanted to create a semi that was, it was an electrically driven semi, but it was the battery is going to be charged with the hydrogen fuel cell component.
Okay.
Right? There's some fundamental challenges with hydrogen fuel cells. We don't actually have any of that infrastructure in place, but the CEO of that company kind of made a name for himself by saying he was going to out Elon Musk. He was a big talker. The more I started looking into his past and the more I started looking into the claims that he was making, the more I realized that basic physics was not going to allow any of his claims to be true. He kept making these claims about battery technology that he couldn't demonstrate. But the thing that really got me, that I made a video basically said I don't believe his claims. I didn't outright use the word fraud, but now I basically can. He claimed.
Why now can you basically? What was allowed you to do?
Well, Hindenburg Research put out a pretty big report on them. I think on the 5th.
Okay.
Basically naming all of their 53 different claims that they had against him, where he's basically lied in public in order to pump up the price of the stock. Like the Badger is the truck that the electric vehicle truck for the consumer market that they're producing. They literally just did that just to get the sort of Robin Hood investor interested in this stock. I had some fundamental issues with how he's going to manage creating infrastructure for hydrogen production and for distribution. But really, when he made this claim that they found a way to reduce the cost of hydrogen production by 81% without any new chemical process, without any new technology, just by economy of scale and standardizations, I'm like, that's not true. This whole thing's a house of cards. This is all a fraud. And I didn't use that word when I made the video, but that's pretty much what I said. And that was really kind of my first video that took off at that point. But I went through the basic.
Interested in the.
They were. I mean, I actually pulled up chemical equations and said, this is how hydrogen is made today.
Well, I'm actually mean more about the company and the stock. Kind of like we got all these freaking Elon Musk guys. Were they actually thinking that that whatever the name of the guy was that
Nicola,
they believed him.
Yeah, they believe Trevor Milton, and he's done a couple of other companies kind of the same way, where he raised money, got out of it, that sort of thing. But the big red flag for me was before he sold a single product, he sold $70 million of his own stock and bought a $35 million house in Utah. So that was the big thing. I'm like, I mean, you haven't sold a single product and you just sold $70 million of your stock at $10 a share. So
I mean, is that I don't know, is that legal or what? I mean, what is it? Just buy
as long as you file your 1244 paperwork or whatever it is, you can sell that stock. But there were some other really, really sketchy things. Like he appointed his brother as the head of hydrogen production. His brother last ran a company, a two-man operation installing driveways in Hawaii. They're really nice driveways, don't get me wrong, but it has nothing. This is nothing about his ability as a chemical engineer or somebody who could manage a logistical supply chain for hydrogen. None of that. A number of their claims just fell flat.
And you were able to see that, just with some good old fashioned elbow grease and basic sleuthing journalistically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sleuthing journalistically, but really, what surprised me is how I got tons of emails on people where I pull up the chemistry on how the 3 different ways where the 95% of all hydrogen is produced today. I'm like, look, it's all produced from natural gas, from methane. It all produces waste products of carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. This is not a carbon neutral product by any means if you're doing it this way. Right. So he claims that you're going to do it by electrolysis, which is actually the most expensive way to do it. Like if you're creating hydrogen by electrolysis, you're at best, that's an 80% efficient process when you crack water using an electrical current, right? Then you're going to lose some, some efficiency in liquefaction and compression and all that. Basically, your well to wheel efficiency at best is going to be 25%. Whereas a battery, if you charge a battery, you're getting anywhere from 70 to 90% efficiency in that equation. Some people say 90%. I just don't believe it. I'd say 70% is probably probably reasonable, probably accurate for most battery manufacturers. But for hydrogen fuel cell, I mean, maybe it's a fuel source one day in the future. I just don't think that this guy is going to be the one who develops it.
Are you big on, see, I got a book on hydrogen fuel cells. This right here is from 1960s, and it's actually incredible. Fuel cells from tomorrow. But this guy's talking about, hydrogen cars and all that. I mean, and it seems like a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing that. And I look, I'm not a scientist. I like to read. I like this stuff and I enjoy it. Sure. And actually it's interesting too, because just real quick, he had mentioned about CO2. I always thought this is from 1965, Jason.
Right.
This guy says there's a longer range possibility that has been voiced by a number of scientists, not given a scaremongering. This is in addition to so much carbon dioxide in an atmosphere that we seriously affect environmental conditions on our own planet. Anyway, there's a lot more going on. I said, man, it's just so interesting that a guy in 1965. Anyway,
so he's probably not talking about in that book. I don't know. They're probably not talking about creating H2O through electrolysis. Though, like the idea to make that in a way that's green would be to use solar power or wind power to do it. The problem is you need enormous amounts of energy.
I think what he's saying is that it's been over probably 3 years since I had read this, but I think what he's saying is like, look, at the end of the day. There is other issues with hydrocarbons that we have to consider, in terms of CO2 that we're pumping in the ground and whatnot and all that. And his whole thing is fuel cells power for tomorrow that can kind of like what you were saying about the geopolitics about what's happening with Tesla. So let's just dive into that if you don't mind, because this is what I think it's kind of this is what I think a lot of people in this false dichotomy of left versus right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I say, man, do you not see if we can have a 180 degree or even a 90 degree viewpoint difference, it's going to change everything, and mostly to the good. That does not mean we have to, anyway, so go into that a little bit.
Well, I think that even without, I think that at this point, politics don't really matter. That good old fashioned capitalism is causing a sea change in the world right now. I don't think people quite realize what's going on with Battery Day. There've been a number of, and that's the other thing with Nikola. There were no leaks from his company, which is why I know they weren't doing any research. With Tesla, there's all kinds of leaks in terms of their battery technology and what's going on. And they took a very different approach with their battery technology. Like their whole thing is. So here's the thing. I've heard you talk about Tesla before, and I've heard you talk about how overvalued they are. They are completely overvalued by traditional valuation metrics. You look at them as a car manufacturer, they're at somewhere north of 900 times earnings right now is their price. It's absolutely unsustainable by traditional valuation metrics.
For a traditional car manufacturer.
Yes.
Pause just a second. Let's put our financial planning hats on for just 1 second. So Jason, you have a lady in front of you who's got, we'll say, over 75% of her net worth in Tesla stock. Do you see?
That's insane. Yeah. That's
okay,
insane.
good.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I cannot be part
of it. There's going to be a lot of down times in the future as well as up times. Let's be realistic here. Tesla does not support itself by selling cars. It supports itself by going back to capital markets periodically and getting money. They've raised $29 billion in secondary offerings and by using convertible bonds since they went public, right? That is not a company that self-supports. And the people that are buying these secondary bonds understand that you're building an industry from nothing, right? Yeah. Or at least I hope they understand that as they're buying secondary. You're building an industry from nothing. It's not going to be able to compete on its own with the big three. It has to go back to capital markets. So the investors, for the most part, are believers in the long-term vision of ending the carbon economy and switching to a sustainable energy economy. That is Elon Musk's actual goal. Right. It's not to be a car manufacturer. It's to end. So if you're looking at Tesla as a car manufacturer,
yes,
they're not. I mean, GM and Ford produce millions of vehicles per year. Tesla just cracked 300,000 last year, which was great. but they just cracked 300,000. The real thing is they've got their hand in alternative energy research. They've got their hand in energy production, battery research, energy storage solutions for the grid, which is something that's not talked about that much, and artificial intelligence, which if you look at an example like where I live in California, we produce plenty of energy, we manage it horribly, and our grid is in trouble because of that. We need artificial intelligence to manage our grid. That's something that they're working on too. So you can't really look at Tesla just as a technology company, but let's put this in perspective from financial planning. If Tesla goes under today, my investment in Tesla, it's going to hurt, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to affect when I retire.
Because you don't have everything in Tesla.
Because I don't have everything in Tesla.
So let's now, good. I just want to clarify that because I do not want anyone sitting there saying, Josh, remember, I'm not neither for nor against Tesla. I just said you cannot have 75% of your portfolio in one stock. I mean, you can do whatever the hell you want, but as financial planners, of which Jason and I both are CFPs, we could never make that. So
any company can go out of business. You probably knew someone back in the day that had 80% of their money in GE. Like, who thought GE would be, the crap stock that it is
or
today?
Exxon. We used to work at USA, Jason. I'll never forget. I had one lady. It looked like her portfolio was diversified to large caps and cash. Turns out the large cap, and we used to remember using Navaplan, was all ExxonMobil stock. She had like 1 million ExxonMobil, 1 million cash. I'm sitting there thinking, the software says she's very well diversified. And I was like, hell's bells. All right, but anyway, let's go back to the geopolitical stuff because I actually, so I'll give you the mic. You take it away. Go ahead, man.
Okay, so look, so Battery Day has been really sort of misunderstood as far as, hey, they're going to announce a new battery. What's that going to do? It's going to make a longer range car. It's not simply going to make a longer range car. We're looking at price parity now between internal combustion engine vehicles and battery vehicles, right? So the battery has been a really large proportion of the overall vehicle price since Tesla first started producing cars. That's been declining over the years. And the announcements right now, like, we know that current Teslas that are coming out right now have the price of their battery somewhere between $110 and $130 per kilowatt hour, right? It really needs to be below that $100 per kilowatt hour range in order to have real parity with internal combustion engines. We already know from white papers and patents that were published that barrier has been crossed, particularly in China with a joint project with a company called CATL. I think it's called Contemporary Amperous Technology Limited, but they're a battery maker in China. So the Tesla Model 3 is going to be using their batteries, which, by the way, don't use cobalt. They use a lithium iron phosphate battery. Cobalt has huge ethical issues. 90% of it comes from the Congo. There's no laws protecting any of those people whatsoever. They're hugely dangerous. I'm all in favor of this. But really, so that battery has some issues because it has a little bit less range, about 280 miles as opposed to 300-mile range for the U.S. batteries. But what this really means, though, is we've crossed a barrier now to where your car in the same class for an internal combustion engine is going to cost just the same as having a battery electric vehicle, right? The crossover point now that has happened, it's going to gradually start to change geopolitics. Many, many countries or many places on this planet have a really outsized effect on geopolitics based on the resources they control and not really the size of your economies. And I'm really talking about places like Russia and Saudi Arabia. Without oil and without natural gas, they're not important at all. And that's really what I'm thinking, that people don't really understand what's happening here. I'm hearing talk right now that the price per kilowatt hour, this is from engineers and battery scientists who really know what they're talking about, is not only going to be decreased to between $50 and $60 per kilowatt hour, but these new batteries are going to get, the first version of these new batteries, I've already tested out at 15,000 cycles, which means that we're looking at that 1,000,000-mile battery range is already there, right? So basically that would be 79 years of driving for the average person, average American. So that battery is going to last forever. So that battery is only good until it gets down to about 70% usability. And then there's sort of a second life for that battery in storage for the grid, where it doesn't need to have heavy loads drawn off of it all at once. And so we're looking at sort of cost sharing between buying the battery in the car, the prices have been reduced. Eventually, when that battery is no longer useful for a car, it's still useful for the grid, and now your local grid can buy it from you and use it in storage. I'm thinking that, number one, the battery technology announcement is going to be very, very poorly understood. The ability for us to store excess energy now, because there are lots of places like Arizona and California, New Mexico, that produce lots of excess solar energy that's not used. Like we can't, during the spring and the fall, we can't use it. It just goes to waste.
Right. So
and
I
now
hope it's going to lead you to my contention, but no, go ahead, because that's
your contention is nuclear power, right?
No, my contention. Okay. You can't store it. There's no storage mechanism.
There's no storage.
And just because you have a 1,000,000-mile battery doesn't change that.
Actually, that does change it. When you're looking at right now, this first generation is 1,500 cycles, and that battery lasts for 400 to 600 miles. When we're looking at the power draw that you use for home use, it's really, this is a game changer, Josh. I mean, you're going to be able to put these batteries in a slot, and as a standalone grid backup battery, it's going to work for 7 to 8 years.
Okay, so hold on just a sec. I'm not all that concerned about the EV aspect. That's fine. I'm actually concerned about, I have a battery bank to run my house, and I'm not talking heating. I'm just talking basic. I'm not even
talking about at your house. We're going to have large storage facilities.
No. I'm not getting what I'm saying is, but I'm not worried about the EV, the electric vehicle. I'm actually saying I need it to have a storage capacity, so that way we don't need to rely on having the utilities actually have a minimum load to operate, because of California is such a custom.
Right.
What I'm saying is, so what you are saying, forget the electric vehicles, but that battery of Tesla. Because as what we call in the good old-fashioned lead acid marine batteries, the depths of discharge and whatnot, it can maintain itself quite well for say 1,000,000 miles, which we can use to draw a load on there for a lot longer than a typical battery, is what you're saying, and it still maintains.
Yes. So back in May, there was a patent published for a new tabless battery, right? So almost all of these battery cells, these lithium-ion batteries, have these tabs that control electron flow and create resistance inside of the battery, which creates heat that needs to be managed. And that's like literally, that's a whole separate video on talking about just how Tesla's battery strategy has been different. So it doesn't look all that important on the outside, but I'm talking to some engineers, and then Elon Musk tweeted, this is way more important than it seems. And apparently what this does is reduces the amount of heat with these tabless batteries, reduces the amount of heat, which extends the life of the battery. When they talk about the 1,000,000-mile battery being in reality, this is, you're going to stick a battery in your house that's going to have the capacity to keep it running for 24 hours, and it's going to last for 8 to 10 years. Or we're going to have centralized power storage locations that are going to source seasonal excess and patented power.
I see what you're saying, but see, that's not. I see what you're saying. It's going to last longer, but it still has to be charged, and it still has got to be recharged and retain the charge.
So power generation.
The batteries downstairs have been here for 10 years. I mean, the last thing in itself doesn't concern me is the fact they have to be charged, though, is that if I'm drawing a load on it consistently to power my TV, to power my LED lights, do this right here, something's got to provide that. So how does that Tesla battery do that and not have to be recharged all the time? You see what I'm saying?
I mean, it's recharged. I mean, you're still cycling the battery, Josh. It's like it only lasts for 400 miles, and then you have to recharge it.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's got.
You mean how are we recharging? Well, I don't know about where you live, but here in San Diego, I'm looking at this right now. We have 1,009 total charging stations just in San Diego, the city of about 1.5 million.
No, you missed my point. What I'm saying is, it doesn't retain the charge. It has to be you have to fill it up, essentially. The battery.
Of course it does. We don't have a problem with power generation, Josh.
We have a problem with storage.
We have a problem with storage.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
We have a problem with storage of excess when we produce it. The other thing is, like, I think this is
exactly
sure, and we can use the same battery technology to store power from the grid and feed the batteries and feed batteries for EVs. That's not the issue. My thing is, these batteries are going to be used for grid storage to feed your house, to feed apartment buildings, to feed everyone else.
That's what I'm saying. So what you're saying is what I'm hearing you saying, and this is what I have significant doubts on. You're saying, okay, I could care less about the electric vehicle.
Right.
What I'm saying is right now, we have a storage issue. No one denies that. We can have all the freaking solar photovoltaic wind. We can have all that crap we want until we have a place to store the what we have to lose right now. It doesn't matter. It's just wasted. You're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, this battery day from Tesla is going to be a game changer to have storage capacity to essentially we can then have our load demand, our demand met by what is in these storage Tesla storage batteries, essentially.
Absolutely. And I'm saying it's within a decade, Josh, within a decade, I'm saying oil demand is going to drop to about 20% of what it is today within a decade.
Within a decade. All right. So
within a decade.
And you're basing that on what exactly?
Well,
I don't want to challenge it, Jason.
First of all, Russia really, first of all, we're already making the switch to renewables, especially in Europe, mostly because Russia really overplayed its hand with the invasion of the Ukraine, which is really all about controlling, a warm water seaport so they can export their crude, which is all about controlling pipelines into to the European Union. I mean, 60% of the imports that the European Union gets from Russia is nothing but fossil fuels. They really overplayed their hand. And if you look at England this summer, actually did not fire up a single one of their coal plants. All of their energy was
time, or I'll grant you that, but that's not much. But keep going.
Right. No, but England did not fire up a single one of their coal plants for the first time in their history.
Okay, right.
And 10 years ago, renewable energy only provided 3% of their power. Now it provides 48% of their power.
Okay, but what is consisting of renewable energy? Did you know?
Wind and solar for the most part.
No, wind and biomass. And where's their biomass coming from?
I'm sorry?
Where's their biomass coming from?
What do you mean by biomass?
It's trees. Essentially, they're taking trees from old growth forests in North Carolina and Canada, and they're shipping them overseas to England, and they're using the biomass in which to generate electricity. That's what they're doing.
And they're burning them, or they're converting them into...
understand how biomass works. So I'd invite you to, encourage you absolutely to read up on biomass. It's
no, I was just reading up on energy, on their energy use just a few days ago.
We can actually even look at their UK grid. It's live, actually. You can look it online. In fact, it's pretty interesting.
I haven't done any research on that.
That's what I'm saying. So you're making this jump to say we're going to have 20% the use of what we have from fossil fuels of oil right now, based on what exactly? And
there's going to be a massive investment in solar here in the United States for one.
Where are you going to put the freaking PV panels, Jason? Where are you going to put them?
We have basically put it to you this way. I have 16 solar panels on top of my house, provides 125% of my needs and a battery backup system.
Yeah.
All new construction in California now is required to have photovoltaic, even apartment buildings up to 3 stories.
Completely agree. All right, that's fine.
It's also partially subsidized by the state.
I don't even care about that. If we have to subsidize the whole thing, I don't give 2 craps about it. Right. Where are you going to put all the solar photovoltaic panels to power the whole country?
Well, it's not just going to be solar. It's not just going to be solar panels. It's going to be wind. It's going to be geothermal. Some of it's going to be natural gas.
You got solar, wind. What'd you say the third thing was?
Some of it's going to be natural gas, renewable natural gas.
Right.
I'm sorry.
You said wind, solar. Did you say hydroelectric?
I didn't mention hydroelectric, but that would probably be part of it. Okay, and hopefully nuclear power. Like I'm all about nuclear power. So
okay, this is not happening. It's just that there's not enough capacity to get the solar photovoltaic, and the reason is it's simple physics here. The wind and solar are freaking such small niches. It's just as irrelevant.
It is now, Josh. We have plenty of empty space in this country to put up solar panels.
Okay. Right. Where are you going to put those solar panels?
West Texas, Arizona, and half of California is empty.
How many do you need to power this country?
Basically, the estimates were done. It says solar panels in comprising an area the size of Spain would probably do it.
So solar panels the size of Spain.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to have solar panels. What is the max efficiency you can get on a full photovoltaic panel? Do you know?
Today is what is around 18%?
Yeah, it's about 25. What's the max?
Okay, I'm a little behind on it. So
max you can do.
So that's slow. That's something that's slowly improved over the years. It hasn't gone. It's gone from 4 to 25 in the last 70 years. It hasn't moved very much at all.
The max efficiency is 33% essentially. So what's happening is if you have in Atlanta, now you guys have about 220 watts per meter square in Los Angeles, in Southern California. we got about 170 here in Atlanta. So you can just take your watts per meter square. It's literally just basic numbers, tons of books to read on this stuff. You say, okay, if I need, and the issue, just basic math in that regard. But the issue that we have, Jason, that does not include flying. That does not include.
No, I'm not saying it's going to replace everything. I'm not saying it's definitely going to replace everything.
That's my thing, is that you were saying the Tesla battery will reduce our need for oil by basically.
No, I'm saying that it's going to change geopolitics because it doesn't take much to affect the politics of these countries. A small percentage of reduction in demand is going to destroy the economics of Saudi Arabia. It's going to destroy the economics of Russia and reduce them to third world.
I agree with Saudi Arabia. I do. Yeah. I think Germany's got to freaking stick up their butts when it comes to Russia with natural gas. And they're not getting rid of that anytime soon because they know for a fact they need that source just because of the load demand, man. They cannot just go on quote renewables. It can't happen. And just watch England. It's not happening. I mean, oh man. It's just not happening. That's where
Josh, you're going to see investments, massive investments in solar farms in places like Morocco, and they're going to have giant DC lines just piping it into Spain and other places. Places that were, it's going to happen, Josh. It's
so
already
you're saying it hasn't happened yet, but it will all of a sudden.
Especially not all of a sudden, especially now that we have solutions for grid management and energy storage.
But that's the whole point. We're going back to the energy storage. Your whole resting is on the. Look, I'm not trying to yell at you. I'm just like, this is fun for me. We're resting on Tesla having a battery in which to hold all this electricity that we can just turn on at low demand. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there thinking, Elon Musk and his team of wonderful engineers are great. They have this revolutionary technology that no one else has had since the dawn of mankind, just out of sudden nowhere. Elon Musk has it. And
no, it's actually not all of a sudden nowhere at all. So if you look at batteries when they first started and the Tesla Roadster rolled off the line, it was about $1,200 per kilowatt hour, and the improvements have been incremental. Unlike like transistors or unlike processing power, it hasn't like doubled every couple of years. It's really been about 7 to 8% improvement over the year. And most of those improvements have not been about new battery chemistry. It's been incremental changes, and it's small incremental changes. They got from $1,200 dollars per kilowatt hour down to 130 without any major changes in chemistry. It was really about manufacturing improvements and small technical improvements. The only thing that's really changed about that right now is this new tabless design that reduces the heat inside of the battery. Yeah. My only concern right now is like we're probably going to end up in the cheaper vehicles here in the U.S. that they make when they eventually come out with a compact. It's going to be that lithium iron phosphate battery, which is not going to have the same range. My problem with the higher end batteries is they require cobalt at this point, and cobalt is a bottleneck resource.
So that's kind of the slave labor of the Chinese, African slaves. I mean, the Chinese with North Korea, the Chinese with Africa are going to Congo.
Yeah, it's happening in the Congo and a couple of other places. But we do have
Chinese weren't using slaves though. Let's just say it's good old fashioned, Mr. Burns with Homer Simpson at the nuclear plant.
Pretty much, it's pretty much that. Like that's my real concern with this. When it comes to, like I said, when it comes to solar power generation, though, like the calculations have been done. Like we essentially need solar panels about the size of Spain to power this entire country.
But you're saying power, right?
Yes.
Separate energy.
No, I'm not. Well, this calculation was done before the advent of EVs, right? This would have been from mid-2000. This was done like mid-2005, this calculation, when I remember.
Jay, you can't. I'm just telling you, don't rely on that. So what I'm saying is,
I'm not relying on it. It's going to be more, but it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be large solar farms everywhere. It's going to be much more diffuse. It's going to be every flat surface in the United States has photovoltaic cells on them.
Okay.
And we're going to have. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
The libertarian in you should love this.
What's
the libertarian in you. The libertarian in you.
Hell no, I don't love it because instead of having
one
with my tried and true book on sustainable energy for without the hot air by my man David McKay. He's since passed on. He's from the UK. He actually does the numbers on this. It's not gonna happen, man. And
Josh, you should love this idea because instead of having a couple of major, I'm sorry.
The facts are we got to separate electricity from energy. And if you're going to say we're going to power the country on solar and wind, what I hear someone saying we're not going to be able to fly, and we're certainly not going to be able to.
Well, I'm not probably not flying. Although
there's no way to fly.
There is an electric VTOL. There is an electric VTOL that's in use and works.
Yeah.
It's not efficient, but it's in use and works. Yeah.
So we're not going to be able to fly. We're not going to be able to ship goods. Now, I have no qualm. The libertarian in me, the anarchist of which I am, not the commie anarchist, but the anarcho-capitalist that says, look, if we want local communities with local grids, I'm all for that, dude. 100% all for that.
Well, I mean, what I was saying about having solar panels on every flat surface is that what we're probably going to have is grid management now by the power companies rather than owning the power production, meaning that I produce my own power at my house. My neighbors all produce their own power at their houses. And we use SDG&E for grid management. Like I don't make any money off the grid, but I don't pay any money to it at this point. Like I literally pay $9 a month for gas, to run my stove, and that's about it. Yeah. I think that's pretty much the future. Is we're gonna have diffuse.
But you're not gonna get that in the Northeast, and you're certainly not gonna heat your home with that. So that's why we got to look at.
No, that's what DC lines are for, Josh. We make more energy than we need already. We can just
solar, man. It's just not happening. It's not gonna happen.
Sure, we do. We make during the spring, the summertime, or during the spring and the fall, rather. We make more energy than we can.
In Michigan, you are not heating your home with electricity if you expect it through the solar photovoltaic. It's not.
No, I don't have any idea what it's like to live in a super cold environment like that. So you're from Maine. It's got to be natural gas or something like that.
Or you can do wood. I don't care. I mean, and wood is a renewable source. That's going back to biomass. This is where the UK is so fraudulent in their numbers on biomass because they're using a huge amount of wood. Because it is true, it is a biomass. It is a renewable. And they're using it and saying similarities that this is renewables. It is. It's absolutely true. It's renewables, but they're shipping by a ship, which is.
You said they're shipping old growth forest, or?
Oh my dude, it's so freaking fraudulent, man. It's nuts what these guys.
I'm not going to comment on that because I need to research that.
These guys you just look at Germany. It's the same damn thing. They're all just lying sacks of crap because they know that the money is in renewable. They know it's insustainable. It's just all freaking fraud. It's a fraud. And I like solar. I'm a huge fan of solar thermal and solar PV. I like it. I hate wind. Not gonna lie to you, I hate wind. I think wind's freaking evil. And all these guys should be thrown in jail because it's fraudulent as all can be. Love hydrocarbon. I love it, but there's only so much you need. You have to have what's called a head. You have to have enough where the water goes up here, it goes down. You just can't do that very easily. Yeah. Solar is great, and I love the idea of solar.
I'm a huge fan of solar. I mean, part of it's because I live in San Diego, but
dude, I
need virtually nothing to power our house. Like even when we had 12 panels, that was everything we needed to power our house.
But yet, power for the average Joe in America is different than electricity. I just cannot stress this.
Yeah, so I'm buying an electric car one of these days. I haven't gotten around. Dude, I'm so cheap, man. I just when this lockdown happened and the price of used cars dropped to nothing, I ended up buying a 2012 or 2010 Ford Escape Hybrid for $4,000.
Hybrids are freaking awesome. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I mean for $4,000, how can you beat that? And it's it gets twice the gas mileage my old car did, so I'm fine with that. But I don't. Yeah.
The issue is natural gas, but I'm just hoping to get away from all that crap because I do believe, and that's where the oil is. But I want to get away with it when we have a reality based on reality, which is that we still have this deficiency of storage. And you're coming at it, and I'm not trying to put words in that Tesla's going to solve this. I'm like, man, let me just read you something here, Jason, real quick. Yeah. This is my man Robert Bryce, Power Hungry. I'm just going to read you real quick because this is just freaking kills me. It's the same damn thing every time with batteries. Actually, I don't even know if I have the page here anymore. Again, I read this stuff. You know how you're a geek on various things. I'm a geek on power because I think it's incredible. I love the idea of batteries. And the reason is I love the idea of off-grid. If you did not have to tie yourself to the grid and have a non-grid tied solar PV with just battery banks, how freaking awesome would that be? If you could just get your local neighborhood community to generate it all and sell it to each other, and then if we had excess, store it.
I'm actually, Josh, I'm close to that. I need to add 2 more batteries and 6 more panels and I'm done. I'm completely off grid. Great.
That's awesome.
So,
but
and that's calculated me adding an electric car. So,
well, how many batteries do you have?
I have 2 now. I need 4.
Two what?
Yeah.
Two.
In order so I can, so well, the benefit of also is I work from home. So like I drive to my other business at night, right? And then I come back, so I can charge my car all day long. So I need 4 of the 3.5 kilowatt hour batteries in order to guarantee that my car is charged up by the morning.
Right. So right now though, without having the electric vehicle, what is the size of your battery bank?
3.5 kilowatts.
Okay. So you have 3.5 kilowatts of stored battery power right there. That the sun comes down.
No, 7 because I have 2. So
you have 2. What's that?
2 batteries.
Okay. So
yeah,
but
so
you have 3.5. You have 3.5 kilowatts
each.
Okay. So 7.
Yeah,
okay. Gotcha. Right. Right. So you have how many batteries is that?
2.
2. Okay.
Yeah.
So these
2.
are significantly heavy.
Yeah, but they weren't. I was actually surprised. They weren't that expensive at all. They were $3,500 each.
Okay, I got you. But they're big batteries. Okay,
they hang outside of my house, and I don't notice them. So when I bought my solar, I kind of figured that this was all going to happen, and I went ahead and set everything up where it would be plug and play for either the LG battery or the Tesla Powerwall.
Oh, and not only that, but from a financial plan perspective, you've actually locked in and inflate. You bought a product at today's prices for something that's guaranteed to go up and cost.
Yeah, but I mean, I really didn't do it for the financial reasons. I did it because it was freaking cool.
No, no, but from a financial, it's like, dude, if I can lock in my energy costs today and never have to worry about it going, getting out.
So the other thing is like, it's supposed to be grid tied, and whenever the grid goes down, my electricity is supposed to go off.
Right.
I know how to keep the switch from flipping, so whenever the electricity goes off, I still have electricity. If I want to.
Well, there should be a transfer switch to do that. You know what I'm saying? That because you don't want to make the lineman at risk, so you got to be very careful.
Yes. Like I know how to turn it off if I want to.
Well, most have transfer switches now. That technology is out there, which is good because grid tied is fine, but when the grid's out, you still want what's called transfer switch to turn it over. It sounds like you have that. Look, dude, you live in the most opportune place for that. You and Amar, you're both there, and I remember me and Amar.
But the entire southwestern part of the United States, though, is an opportune place for that. I mean, from West Texas, I mean, basically from San Antonio all the way to California, it's the Sun Belt. You could
electricity. You can
electricity.
Get on a plane and say, I'm using my grid or my battery banks to fly to freaking.
Yeah, that idea is being worked on right now, and I'm not convinced that they're close to that.
Nope.
I'm not convinced they're close to that. But one of the big things that I'm looking forward to getting is actually a battery powered outboard engine. That's something I'm looking at. I'm actually looking forward to. One of the big issues with if we go back to Nicolone, we're talking about the trucks. Is that for some of the longer range, less service routes, it doesn't make sense to have battery electric vehicles. They're only going to have 350 miles of range with current technology from 6 months ago. It makes a lot of sense to have like compressed natural gas as a generator that charges the battery en route. And all the calculations are showing you're getting 1,000 to 1,300 miles of range out of these vehicles. And that makes a lot more sense than going with hydrogen because we already have natural gas infrastructure in place.
Well, why don't you just have a battery changing station? I mean, you say, look, every 300 miles, you got a battery. That's what I think. You just
they actually do that. You know who NIO is in China?
I don't. No.
So NIO is kind of they're called like the Tesla of China, but there's no Tesla of China. Tesla is the Tesla of China. So they have started a battery swapping network. They've already gone over 800,000 swaps, and they kind of connected like Beijing, Shenzhen, and Shanghai all in this like big triangle. And they've got like 140 stations that, like I said, they've done 800,000 swaps. They can do them in under 3 or 4 minutes. The swapping stations are all done modularly too. They're temporary. So if you have heavy demand, you can add one. If there's no demand, you can take it away. It's been done. It's being done now. They've been doing it for a few years, and it seems to work. Tesla abandoned this. And they originally tried the idea. They set up a couple of test stations up in the San Francisco area, and then they abandoned this because battery technology improved so much. The issue with China is population density. They're serving the Pearl River Valley or Pearl River Delta, which has like 57 million people that live there. It's the largest urban area on the planet. Even rich people there live in apartments and don't necessarily have charging stations. So NIO basically said that, like, if we're going to sell electric cars, we have to do battery swapping to alleviate, range concerns. And so that's something that's probably going to happen. But that's a whole separate.
Well, that's exactly, and that's the difference between the Tesla is never going to be the car. Like you started with this whole thing in your video that you did. Tesla is not a car company; it's a tech company that happens to manufacture cars. So, and people are debating this in the comments here too. And I was like, that's not in my opinion, that's not the point of the electric vehicles versus ICEs or hybrids. That for me, that's not the point. The point
but the ICEs are going away. If you look at GM is supposed to come out with an all-electric line of designs next year, and they tried to cut a deal with Nikola. Did you see this?
I did. I just laughed because look. Let me just read this to you real quick because this is the same thing. I tell you, man. So I'm going to read you a. We've heard this so many times. In 1911, the New York Times declares that the electric car has long been recognized as the ideal solution because it's cleaner and quieter and more economical. 1915, Washington Post writes, prices in electric cars will continue to drop until they're within reach of the average. We go back to 1901, where Thomas Edison's new strategy. If the claims which Mr. Edison makes for his new battery be not overstated, there's much doubt it'll make a fortune for him, and we'll all be driving electric vehicles. We've heard this so much.
The difference is, Josh, it's actually happening now. Like, no electric car company has ever sold 300,000 vehicles. And look, Tesla is actually outnumbered by all of the other producers in places like China. Even if you go to Europe, there's something like 20 different countries right now that are selling electric vehicles in Europe. They are fully committed to this, and the difference is they've got tons of government support. They want to switch over to this. The whole idea we can continue to have a carbon economy as long as we have like concentration and capture, which is kind of the issue.
Wait, Jason, you keep saying we can continue to have this carbon economy. We have to have a carbon economy if we're going to have planes and ships. There's no other way.
Yeah, well, ships are something that could be replaced as well.
Okay, nuclear. That's the only way. You're not going to replace.
No, that's not the only way. It's not the only way.
You're going to tell me on battery backs, you're going to move product from China over to the U.S. with batteries.
So batteries, yes, but this way, Japan is already developing hydrogen fuel cell ships right now. They have electric drives and hydrogen fuel cell generators.
Developing. So going back to you're saying within 10 years, we're going to have 80%.
Well, ships are a different story. Ships are 30 or 40 years. They last 30 or 40 years.
You said you're going to have an 80% reduction in oil within 10 years. And
80% reduction. Oh no, 80% reduction in demand for all petroleum products within 10 years. Oh, we're still going to need it for fertilizer. I don't know if you knew this or not, but almost all fertilizer is derived from natural gas.
But wait. You're going to have an 80% demand from all carbon products, but
all carbon products. Yeah, we're still going to need it for high quality.
But plastics. You just said that the oil to move product from Japan to China via ships here, that they're still just developing. So I'm confused. Where's the?
Now they're actually putting huge amounts of money into this. Japan has bet pretty big on hydrogen. I think that's going to turn out to be a mistake for them because of how expensive hydrogen is.
But are we going to have within 10 years now?
Ships probably not, just because ships last for 30 or 40 years.
Okay, but that blows up the whole thing about we're going to be going down to only 20%.
Oh no! If we're taking billions of cars off of the road that are internal combustion engines over the next 10 years, now it's going to drop significantly.
Do you not know how many? Okay, so then airplanes. So let's go to airplanes. So let's just pretend.
Airplanes.
So what you're saying is because we're taking the ICEs off the road, that will allow us to still have fossil fuel transfers on planes and ships, and we'll have 20% demand of oil that we have
about 20% amount. Yeah, that's the estimate. That's the estimate that I read. I need to provide that article to you.
All right. So let's just pure kilowatt hour numbers. If I fly from here to London, right? If that's just me on one plane, I'm not freaking rich boy. I'm just on a coach plane from here to London. That's the equivalent of 33 kilowatt hours a day for the entire year for just me, not the 300 other passengers, just me. All right. That sucker is running.
That's not, but I'm not just saying that cars are going to be taken off the road too. A lot of the power generation that we use right now by burning fossil fuels is going away as well. It's going to be replaced by by greener greener fuels. So not just cars, but because we have energy storage solutions now,
You
a lot of our
the plane stuff. You can't.
Not with planes. We're not getting rid of planes. We're
But
still going to be using, but it's not going to. That's not going to account for more than 20% of the use that we have today.
Transportation absolutely does, and
transportation does, Josh, but not
shipping and airplanes. I mean, that's literally the transportation.
Josh. No, I agree with you on this, but it's not going to be more than 20% of the demand we have today. The demand for hydrocarbons that we have in our economy today has to do with, a lot of it has to do with shipping. A lot of it has to do with power generation as well. A lot of that power generation, a lot of the use of hydrocarbons and power generation is going to go away in the next decade and be replaced with wind and be replaced with solar. I know you hate wind. It's going to be replaced with geothermal. Hopefully it's going to be replaced with nuclear, but I don't have a lot of hope for that.
But what I'm saying is if you're saying that 20% was going to be the number that we're going to use, I'm saying transportation is a significantly more usage of this than ICEs for simply transportation being flying and shipping.
It's not more than 20. It's not more than, it's definitely not more than 20% of the use today. If you take ICEs off the road, you take trains, and they're all electric now too, using electric engines, you take trucking off the road too. Well, trucking's not as big as outside of the United States, but yeah.
We validate you're not sure though, right? Because there's no way you're sure of this.
No, I'm not positive.
Okay, that's fine.
Not positive. So yeah,
okay, that's fine. So, so let's just say for simplicity that it is 20%. You're saying once we get rid of all this other stuff, even if we still had planes and shipping, and even if that were just 20%, that's everything else would be gone. We just need 20% for planes.
That would probably, I mean, and that's, we're not going to get rid of it completely anyway. Like I said, we make almost all of our fertilizer from natural gas.
Okay. No, I understood. So
and that's a huge issue. That's a much larger issue than people consider, is that almost all of our fertilizer comes from natural gas.
Okay.
And as one of the largest producers of corn and certain other goods on the planet, we use a lot of natural gas to make fertilizer. That's not going away.
Fertilizer, then we'll throw fertilizer in there, so maybe 25%, because we'll say fertilizer plus fuel for the shipping and plus fuel for the planes. We'll just say 25%. We're not really sure.
Shipping will take longer to transfer over to some sort of electric type of shipping, simply because ships last long and the capital investment is going to be huge.
But the technology, you're saying it's because the ships last longer, but you're assuming the technology is going to be there within the next 10 years to do this.
The technology is already being developed right now. The Japanese have working prototypes of hydrogen fuel cell electric ships that they're testing right now. Like I said, I would actually prefer to see some sort of renewable natural gas, like derived from methane, from decaying whatever, as a fuel source rather than hydrogen. Though hydrogen, I think, is just a loser's game. Like you can't. Like I said, at best 25% efficiency, and even less when it comes to using a ship, because it's traveling through water.
How about heating a house in the most of the states other than where you guys?
To be honest with you, that is something that I haven't studied at all, because I'm not from a cold area, and that's something I don't know about at all.
So we know air conditioning we can do on photovoltaic. We know that air conditioning can be done for the most part.
So heating, even heating here in California is mostly done through electric floor heaters. But to be honest with you, I just never lived in the Northeast. I don't know what your energy requirements are up there for heating.
Yeah, so a heat pump is actually quite perfect for where you are.
I'm not saying it's going to eliminate the carbon economy completely. It's not. But it's going to eliminate it as a geopolitical force in a lot of ways. Okay. We can supply, we are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas, and we can supply all we need for ourselves in an era where we have, other means to supply electricity.
Fossil fuel?
It's absolutely a fossil fuel. Dude, I'm not totally against fossil fuels. I just want to reduce the amount that we're putting into the atmosphere.
Well, of CO2.
Yeah, I want to reduce the amount. If we reduce the amount of fossil fuel usage to 20% of what we have today, that would be freaking wonderful.
Because you want to reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere for why exactly?
Oh gosh, Josh. Okay, so the reason why we know
my dog is acting weird. What are you doing, buddy? Okay, go ahead.
Why? You know what? I meant to pull up this article for you, and I forgot about it. We know that's based on experimentation that CO2 increases temperature, and don't say that it doesn't. It's I've heard you say this on your.
We do know that CO2 we start with higher CO2, then inherently we have higher temperatures. We know that is what you're saying. And if I say otherwise, I'm anti-science.
No, we know based on experimentation that that's what's happened in the past. And these experiments have been replicated over and over and over.
Okay. So let's just grant that. I don't, but let's just grant the premise that CO2 increases, higher temperatures increase. Okay. Let's just, we'll start with that. I'll grant that. You still there?
Okay. What's wrong with having cleaner skies? What's wrong with having cleaner air? What's wrong with having less smog?
CO2, is it smog?
Not CO2, but the other things associated with burning hydrocarbons.
Okay, so carbon monoxide.
Okay. Dude, carbon monoxide, that's great. That's why. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with destroying the monopoly on, not the monopoly on power? What's wrong with destroying the power structure of the hydrocarbon industry today?
All right, so, but I just want to be clear, because initially I said, what's wrong with CO2? And then you said smog. I said, well, CO2 and smog.
No, not smog, not smog. I'm talking about the whole burning of fossil fuels. But CO2 by itself.
Yeah, let's just focus on CO2. What's the bad about CO2? The increasing temperatures.
What's bad about increasing temperatures?
No, that's what I said initially. What was bad? Okay, about
so from a human perspective, or from a biological perspective?
Either, I don't care. Just what I said. So the debate was.
So from a biological perspective, nothing. Life will still continue and life will survive on this planet. For human civilization, though, things could be very different. Okay. Well, growing zones are going to shift, meaning that we're not going to be able to grow some crops in certain places, and new crops are going to be able to be grown in other places. That's already happening in places like England. Some of their trees that they used to produce fruits, or that they used to have great crops, so they can't produce fruits anymore because temperatures have changed. You know what I'm saying? We're going to see growing zones shift further north for certain products, and certain products won't be able to be grown in areas because rainfall patterns have changed or things have happened. Have you ever studied the Anasazi? You know who they are?
The who?
Anasazi.
I have no idea.
The Anasazi were a group of Native Americans that lived in the American Southwest, and so we don't really know what happened. We don't really know what happened to them. But we know that as a result of climate change, and this is actually a period of global cooling, that they went from a relatively wet period for about 100 years, because it was relatively warm. They went to a wet period of about 100 years, where they developed a civilization, developed farming. Then they went through a relatively dry period of about 150 years, and everything collapsed. And you ever read a book called Man Corn by, you got to read this. It's Man Corn by an archaeologist named Christy Turner. And he hypothesized that the Anasazi actually destroyed themselves in an orgy of cannibalism because of successive crop failures. And they had been invaded by the Toltecs or whatever. But it was basically environmental change caused the collapse of civilization. They simply weren't able to adjust because they became dependent on corn.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know what you know about
agriculture. No, understood.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you know about corn farming, but
absolutely. Agriculture has been we know exact Monaco. We know all that. Absolutely.
It's risky. We're looking at economic disruption, which, if you're looking at things on a planetary scale, like economic disruption only means bad things for humans. I happen to be human.
Wait, what only means bad things for humans?
It only means bad things for humans.
You said it. I'm not sure what I missed.
So the economic disruption from climate change really only means bad things for humans. So really, a lot of the talk about climate change isn't really all about the environment. It's all about the changes and what threatens our economic stability, right? Where life is not going to end. Humans aren't going to end. It's just that some countries are going to be impoverished by this, and some of them are going to be wealthier. I would prefer things to remain the way they are environmentally, because I like living in a wealthy Western democracy that has plenty of food. I don't want to end up in a country that collapses because of environmental change. Have you ever studied something called, it was called the Bronze Age collapse? It happened about 1100 to 1250 BC.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Not that actually is the opposite of what's happening right now. It's another episode of global cooling that caused changes in actually something called a push-pull effect, where there were changes in rainfall patterns in the steppe, right? It pushed nomads off the steppe into civilized areas, and they ended up burning, basically every city from Hattusis down to Gaza was burned over 100-year period because of barbarian invasions, right? And this is something that we could be facing, is mass people movements as a result of climate change.
Okay.
Climate change
being what exactly?
Well, any climate change. And right now, the problem is right now we have anthropomorphic climate change, which is not the first time this has happened also, meaning human-caused climate change. But anyway, you know all of this. I don't know why you want me to keep talking about it. So.
Because I'm not seeing how it's mutually exclusive, that one thing has to lead to the other, or I mean, they can't have the both exist. I don't get how you say we live in a nice environment in Southern California and in North Georgia. This is going to change if we don't do something differently. Why? I don't get why those two things are mutually exclusive. I'm not following that.
What do you mean?
They can't both exist. So basically, if we continue on whatever path we're on for climate change, which I'm going to assume is global warming because we're putting more and more CO2, we got 400 parts per million in their atmosphere now. So it would say, if we go back to the initial assertion that you made, that CO2 increase leads to higher temperatures, inherently we're talking global warming. All right, so global warming thus would mean, given that we have an increased climate change, you like to live in the society we're in now, that would change negatively if we don't do something about global warming. Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get why would that do anything if we
crop production is the main thing.
Crop production, what regard?
Meaning there's going to be shifts in where we're going to be able to grow things and how we're going to be able to move things. Right now, if you look at what is the most productive farm area in the United States?
Well, the most productive that we freaking pay for stupid monoculture and corn, we know, is in Nebraska and the Midwest.
Yeah, the most productive farm area in the United States by far is Imperial Valley in California.
Is where?
Is the Imperial Valley in California.
All right.
Right? It's actually, and it's completely dependent on water that's pumped in from the Colorado River. It's pumped into a desert. The desert there is very fertile because it hasn't been farmed for the last 10,000 years, like many other places on the planet. The Colorado River is drying up because of decreased rainfall and because of poor management too. That's the other thing.
Decreased rainfall. Oh.
Absolutely. So.
Okay, let's keep going. Just keep going. Decreased rainfall. All right.
No. So what happens?
Droughts? Are we then insinuating there's more droughts in California?
There's more drought. So we may be entering a longer period of drought throughout the entire
Are there more droughts in California?
States, so.
I mean, do you know? There's not. By far and away, there's not more droughts in California. So we have going back to what you had said before, increasing global warming would theoretically make it have a more moist environment. Thus, we go back to 1930s when we had the massive amounts of people from Oklahoma, whatever the stupid Steinbeck novel and stuff, huge amounts of droughts and whatnot, and we don't have that today. It's not anywhere near that. And thus, if global warming is true, we have more CO2 in the atmosphere, leading to more temperatures, leading to more moisture. We're gonna have less. We have more rainfall, and that.
I'm sorry. Say that again. Say that again.
So if you look in the 30s, we see we have massive amounts of droughts, huge global increasing in temperature. Could that be attributed to the industrial age? Who knows? I don't think so. But either way, the facts are in the 1930s, the temperatures were through the roof relative to what they've been since in the 1930s. And we can say
the temperatures were through the roof relative to today in the 1930s.
Absolutely, man. That's not even questionable.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I need to look that up. I'm not sure that I can accept that without verification.
Dude, you don't have to accept it by me. That's the whole point about this. I invite anybody to look up anything. I think it's great. And I would invite anyone to look up the validity of solar panels. I don't even care. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, CO2 is spewed bulk from transportation, shipping, and airplanes. If CO2 is going to make us have a society where you can no longer live where you are and I can no longer live where I am in a fluent Western society, and because of that, then
let me ask you a question, Josh. Do you think that temperatures are increasing now, that the global temperatures are rising or not?
I think they're increasing a little bit, sure. Absolutely. Okay. And I think the waters are rising a little bit. It doesn't bother me in the least. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I tell you, in fact, we can see, and CO2 doesn't bother me in the least. We have a greener Earth now.
And do you think that humans have anything to do with this?
Absolutely. We're putting CO2 in the atmosphere. Does it bother me? No. I like green Earth. I like green Earth, and green Earth is CO2. We know we need CO2. I'm breathing.
Okay. What about other greenhouse gases? Methane.
Yeah,
we're certainly responsible for a lot of that. Carbon monoxide, we're certainly responsible for a lot of that.
That would be the argument against literally against cow farts. I get that. However, again, do I think it's a problem? No, I don't, not in the least. I think it to be sitting there.
So you don't think that life has the ability to affect the biosphere on this planet?
A little bit, not much.
Well, you're completely and totally wrong about that, Josh.
I completely disagree.
I mean, you don't realize that before life evolved on this planet, that the atmosphere was completely different.
The atmosphere,
and geologists know this.
Well more than 400 parts per million CO2, well before human beings did anything.
Absolutely, it did. And the rise of trees and things, the evolution of trees and things like that changed that. Right, life is the most dominant feature on this planet, and not just us, but all life is the most dominant feature on this planet, and has an effect on its atmosphere all the time. Right, to say that we can't affect the atmosphere or do something that puts us in danger is kind of silly. We are doing things that put our own civilization in danger.
Okay, what is the primary thing we're doing if it's CO2 and or methane? Because methane by far and away is a lot bigger of a greenhouse gas than CO2.
It's a bigger greenhouse gas, yeah.
Just for the debate, let's talk about CO2. You cannot sit here not knowing how much is spewed by friggin' ships and by planes and sit there and say, if CO2 is a culprit, that we can keep this up what we're doing. You can't. CO2.
Josh, what's wrong? Even if just shipping and planes were half of what we were doing instead of 20%, like the estimate that I saw, what's wrong with eliminating the other half of it? What's wrong with it?
Okay, so the issue is that you say the CO2 that we're putting in the atmosphere, it has to be reduced. It has to be eliminated because we're causing climate change. If we allow for planes and shipping transportation, which is by far and away the biggest cause of CO2, then I would simply say, okay, if we're not going to eliminate planes and ships, why should I eliminate my ICE?
Because it's not by far more than ICEs and power generation. Absolutely, I do.
You don't know how much. As I said, for me to get on one plane going to London one time round trip, that's the equivalent of 33 kilowatt hours a year, a day for a year, for a year. This house right here of 6 people, a 3,000 square foot house, we average about 66 kilowatt hours a day. So for me to take that one overseas trip, and look, you don't have to believe me.
But you're not, but Josh, you're not flying alone on that overseas trip. Are you saying that your share of that?
It's not, Jason. You don't know what you're doing.
No, you're saying your share of that is 33,000?
One person on a trip of 300 people is the equivalent of 33 kilowatt hours.
33, or you said 33,000 though? 33,000?
33 kilowatt hours a
33
day
kilowatt hours
for the whole year. The guy sitting next to me is also 33 kilowatt hours.
Okay, so you're not saying your share, you're saying each person. Okay.
Each person. You cannot allow, if you are worried about CO2, this is my pet peeve with all you guys. You sit there and you say, I'm worried about CO2.
All you guys, who you guys?
Because the people who are so concerned that CO2 is going to make us all not be able to live the life we love to live. You don't want to tackle the main thing, which is flights and transportation, because for some reason you have it in your head that Japanese has some way they're going to ship products.
Oh, no, I'm not saying I don't want to tackle it. I'm just saying we don't know how to tackle it at this point.
Because you don't know what it is. You don't know the true effect of planes and transportations on the environment. And for some reason, it's all the cars. And when I sit there, I say, that's great. Until we get rid of these other things, frankly, it doesn't matter. And until we stop people flying, it doesn't matter. And so if you want to make a dent in CO2, which I don't, because I actually like a warmer climate. I do. I like more green. It's going to be better agriculture. It's going to be a hell of a lot less people dying from cold, because lots more people die from cold in the world than they do from heat. And by the way, I will tell you too, the thing that
so as a former archaeologist, I can tell you that global cooling is far more terrifying than global warming is. We have concrete examples of collapsing civilizations from global.
That's what you said. I literally just said that. I said the cooling kills a hell of a lot more people than heat does. That's why I like global warming. Absolutely. If I had to choose, I'd take global warming any day of the week.
I'm not sure that I like either one of those. I'd like homeostasis, but that's not going to happen. So
you really think human being? Okay, well, we're just gonna have to have a moral debate on this at some point. Do you really think if we got rid of everything, if we got rid of planes, we got rid of ICEs, we got rid of everything, that do you really think it's going to have that big of effect on the world, and we're all going to be sitting here like we are today? I mean, really?
Josh, I think that every little bit helps. I'm thinking we're never going to eliminate. We're never going to eliminate putting carbon into the atmosphere. We aren't going to do that.
Every little bit helps, but it helps in what regard? That's what I'm saying, man.
It helps to prevent runaway global warming, which is what we're in right now, Josh.
The world is warming. Global warming. Dude, look at the 1930s relative to where we are today.
Looking at things over a much longer span than just the last 100 years, Josh, we are warming very quickly, faster than any warming we've ever had in history.
What did you just say? Did you say we're in the worst of global warming anyone we've ever had in history? Did I just hear you say that?
In human history, probably.
But you don't. Yeah. That's simply not true. You don't know. This is nuts. You never heard of medieval warm period? Come on, man. You never heard of
medieval warming period? I mean, literally, basically, other than like the younger
triad. All right, we got to stop because we obviously are at a loggerheads. That's fine. I'm sitting there thinking we've got to do a better job of educating each other, because not just you and I, but what's happening is there's a loggerheads here that says I see the way I see, you see the way you see, and there's no middle of the road here. And I thought,
the middle. So the problem is, I'm totally biased by this. Like, my view on this is over 10,000-year blocks and not over the last 100 years. Like, I'm not even. That's one of my biases.
10,000-year blocks. You're not familiar with the medieval war period, man, or the little.
Sure, I am. Sure, I'm familiar with the medieval warm period. I'm familiar with the Little Ice Age and all of those different episodes. When you take everything into account, going back 10,000 years or so, we've never risen faster than we have in the last 150 years, right? Temperatures have never risen faster, even during the medieval warm period.
All right. We'll just have to say, okay, I completely, 100% unequivocally disagree. And the funny thing is,
why would you disagree? Like, why? I mean,
look at the 1930s. I just invite you.
Have you not studied like the studies are done on like ice core samples from Greenland or dendrochronology from?
Wait, so what are we basing that on? Are you familiar with Michael Mann's hockey stick?
What?
Michael Mann, his hockey stick. Are you familiar with this guy?
No.
Because that guy's a fraud. And so basically, Michael Mann, he's a big guy for the one of the biggest global warming I call them climistas out there. And Michael Mann created this hockey stick thing. He said, look at the war, put like that. Ever since the industrial age, it went like this. The thing's a fraud, dude. Complete fraud. They have this thing from the East Anglia Climate Research Unit, is what is in England, where they had to hide the decline. Phil Jones and the fraudulent people at the scientists, the East Anglia Climate Research Unit, said we got to hide the decline because we.
I think I remember something about that.
Yeah. And so the hockey stick, essentially, what it is, Jason says, this is what it was. It's all of a sudden the industrial age. It's everybody's just dumb. Michael Mann, there's a guy, a physicist, if memory serves, up in Canada, who said, he said, I'm taking you to court for defaming me. And Michael Mann took him to court for defaming him. That's what it was. And the guy said, that's fine. I'll go to court. Just show me your numbers. Show me the truth. And Michael Mann refused to do it. And so Michael Mann had to.
I definitely don't like people who refuse to show their data.
Well, but see, the basis of all this stuff is based on Michael Mann and it's a hockey stick. And the East Anglia Climate Research Unit, and we have lots of evidence that these guys are freaking scoundrels.
I've been on this topic for years, Josh, and I meet people all the time who are like, look up this guy, look up this guy, look up this guy. And when I go back and do it, I end up finding holes or flaws in their logic.
The only thing I ask you to do, two things.
Yeah. I'm a big research guy. You've already raised some questions.
2 things, I'll give you 2 things.
Yeah, you've already, the biomass thing with on the British grid is definitely something I'm going to research tonight.
Well, then look at the 1930s weather.
I look at the 1930s. Yeah, but there's always periodic, like I said, there's always going to be periodic
Yeah,
differences in
give me two
temperature
things to
anyway.
look up. Two things for me, and we can look at
Two things to look up.
Yeah.
Man, I've been off of global warming for so long. I'm going to email those to you.
Because you think his debate is over, right? That's why.
No,
it's okay to admit that. Is that why
science isn't settled ever, ever. It's
never
settled.
You said scientists is never settled. Is that what you said?
Never settled. Oh, never settled.
Thank
you. Science is never settled.
You're still
that concept doesn't exist in science.
Thank you. No. Man, I could not agree with. That's a good way to us to be friends again, because you said
for us to be friends again.
It's all a debate is good. It's fun to do.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have the audacity to admit that science is never settled is just music to my ears. Because
I don't understand why that's an audacious statement. That's fact. It's never settled. It's like, no, I mean, every great discovery that was ever been made was by going against consensus and accepting ridicule and leaving your data out there to be torn apart by the public. I guess you know, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but I'm a published archaeologist, so. And, I was a published archaeologist before I got into being a financial planner.
Smart dude, man, absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, it's
that's why you know all about the American Indian stuff. I get all that, dude.
It's the most unpleasant thing in the world to put out a paper and then have everything just torn apart. And I mean, there are entire people in academia that they don't do any original research. All they are is they just tear apart other people's research. And nobody likes those people. But they have because I mean, the thing with peer review is it doesn't stop with publication, right? It never stops at all. I mean, there are scientists that make their whole careers on doing nothing but destroying other people's work. They're giant jerks, but they serve a valuable role. They're what keeps people honest. Like what's going on right now with this whole COVID-19 thing, people think that, scientists don't know what they're talking about or anything. This is actually normal. This is what happens with everything, every big question in science. Tons of crazy ideas are put out there. The community goes on attack. They start pulling apart data, pulling apart methodology, and proving things incorrect, or saying, "Hey, this needs to be replicated." This is normal. Like for me to say that science is settled on anything is ridiculous.
I mean, I get that, but why would? I mean, if their whole job is to tear apart science, does that actually? I mean, I don't know. Does that actually contribute?
Oh no! The whole idea is they should be producing original research. But many scientists don't. Like all they do is publish reputations or that sort of thing.
Let me going back. This is a complete out of left field. What's your take on a potential vaccine for the stupid COVID virus? I mean, what? Just look. I'm just curious. What's your take?
I'd be highly skeptical, mainly because coronavirus research has been going on for about 60 years, and we have maybe one canine coronavirus vaccine and nothing else.
This is why you see this, man.
Yeah,
exactly. You and I are we're attached at the hip. You believe it or not.
So here's the thing. You know what the mRNA vaccine is?
Let's say again.
The mRNA vaccine is it's a whole new type of vaccines, and I'm probably going to misspeak on this, but basically, when you take the vaccine, you're getting an RNA instruction that's inserted in your own DNA. It causes your cells to produce basically the protein shell of the virus. So it doesn't produce the virus DNA, any of the virus DNA at all. It produces the protein shell around it, because that's what the antigens recognize. Is they recognize the shape of that protein shell and they attack it, right? So this is a safer way, supposedly, of creating a vaccine. Is you basically training your cells to recognize the protein shell and enters your body to attack it, and none of the virus DNA is ever produced, right? The problem is the sort of science fiction nerd in me can already see the science fiction like applications for murder that this has.
Yeah.
There are so many proteins that we can't tolerate at all. There are so many ways that we can. I mean, this is science fiction, of course, but you could have like an mRNA vaccine you created for someone, or that process that would actually cause them to produce prions. Prions are they cause like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or mad cow disease or something like that. Or anyway, very, very fascinating. I know that some of your crowd is anti-vaccine and they probably just made this worse.
No, not necessarily.
but it's very fascinating. This is something that could be done now with this, but you could force someone's body to create designer proteins,
right,
using an mRNA type delivery system. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
So is that? I mean,
terrifying.
it's terrifying. That could be terrifying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, a couple of the vaccine makers are focusing on this approach. Except that approach is not what scares me. What scares me is the other applications of that technology.
Okay.
But no, do I think we're going to have a working vaccine that is effective for a long term? I don't know that we'll ever have one.
So if they, so that's the thing. So if what they're doing in Ireland, for instance, is they're getting ready to on your phone. You have this cell phone thing, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm sitting there, Jason. I'm like, why do people not? And it's contract, whatever the hell it is. You know what I'm saying? And then you're going to have to do this vaccine to be able to go from.
The contact tracing.
But no, that's the beginning. Yeah. And then they're going to say, well, if you want to go to this place, you have to have a vaccine that proves that you have the vaccine, taken it and put it on your phone. I'm like, that's freaking.
Well, I mean, that's not their idea in Ireland. They got that idea from Taiwan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Taiwan, what they did. So Taiwan has a real success story when it comes to coronavirus, and it's a huge. And it's a huge island, but it's extremely densely populated along the coast, and people live right on top of each other. What they did is they never really shut down their economy. Everyone just wore gloves and wore masks. They never stopped travel or anything like that. But when someone was exposed, they basically said, okay, you're in quarantine now for 2 weeks. We're going to track your phone. We're going to pay you, like it was equivalent of like $33 a day for every day that you stay home. And they used their phones to track them if they left. Yeah. And if they left, they'd call them. And they'd call them once or twice a day, say, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? Can we bring you food? That sort of thing. And that's all they did. That's literally all they did is people wore masks, washed their hands, social distance, and contact tracing. And their crisis is basically over. And the same thing with South Korea, same thing with Japan, same thing with New Zealand.
But they're not saying you have to take a vaccine to go from point A to point B, though. You see
no, they've not even stopped travel. They haven't even stopped travel. Like in Japan, like when my wife flew to Japan.
That's the concern is that they're going to say in Ireland and these other places, like, look, once we have the vaccine, then everything opens back up, and we're going to validate you have the vaccine through this an app on your phone. I was like, dude, that's freaking frightening if you ask me. Just getting back to what you said about, you see what I'm saying? I was like, how do we?
No, but I mean, if you look at the countries where their crisis is basically over, it's because they didn't act like a bunch of jerks. They just wore masks, social distance, washed their hands, and all cooperated.
So you brought up coronavirus and mask. You hit a nerve. I don't even want to get that. I'm just saying, given what you said about the vaccines and given what
it's like I'm not sure we're ever going to get a vaccine for that. It would be nice, but you're not going to be able to convince me for that. Coronaviruses mutate really quickly for the most part, and I mean, if you look at there's basically 5 coronaviruses that are responsible for most of our common colds. We've been researching coronaviruses for 60 years now, and we don't. Was it because, I mean, there's certainly economic interest in creating a vaccine for the common cold. It causes thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of man hours lost to work every year. Why wouldn't someone want to create a vaccine for it? But we haven't done it. So I don't think that we're going to have one that works effectively. It might work against COVID-19. The problem is we're probably going to have COVID-20 next year.
And not that, but we won't even know what the side effects are for a long time. You see what I mean? That's the thing. It's like, dude, they can have a vaccine all day long, but what's the long-term ramifications? No one knows. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of creepy. I think it's creepy.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've been to several places in Central Asia where I've seen, dozens of kids brain damaged from having the measles.
What's the anti-vaxxer? What's an anti-vaxxer? Now we're back to the fight. Let's go, Jason.
The fight. The thing is, I'm just not a conspiracy theorist. I worked in management for too long to ever be a conspiracy theorist.
Did you see the MMA fight last night with that guy from, I don't know, a white guy and a black guy? We're all angry at each other. I don't watch it, but it's just, I know you like the jiu-jitsu.
I didn't watch it last night.
Someone said Jason must be a lib. I don't think so. I think Jason's an entrepreneur, probably I think Jason is probably more on the.
I don't know. My arsenal is way too large for me to be a lib. So
I think it's more of a hippie-ish I don't want to say anarchist, but a hippie-ish. I don't want to say.
I'm definitely a messy freedom kind of guy.
Yes,
Don't get me wrong. Like my business was a mile away from the riots that happened in La Mesa, California, and like I said, I'm not uncomfortable with the protests. I'm uncomfortable with riots. Not uncomfortable with protesting. I grew up in an area where I not only experienced real oppression based on my skin color, but I witnessed it in ways that was far, far worse. 8 and 10-year-old little boys being criminalized, by our local police. I definitely think that we've become far too comfortable with authoritarianism in this country.
Man, completely. See, I'm telling you.
I know, John. We've had this discussion before. We agree on
I don't like the cops freaking asset forfeiture. I don't like the drug war.
Civil asset forfeiture in my home state of Texas is absolutely ridiculous. But I try telling one of my high school friends who's now a cop that you are the enforcement arm for the ruling class, and you don't get very far, right? So, but seriously, people need to really have a soul-searching moment and look at how much power we've ceded to the police. They walk around in warfighting equipment. And they could seize assets from people who they suspect committed the crime without ever having to charge them with anything. 81% of people, and this ACLU, take this for what it is. The ACL did this research and determined that 81% of people that have assets seized under civil asset forfeiture laws are never even charged with the crime.
Yeah, I completely. I mean, even if it's half that, it still pisses me off. That's wrong. You see what I'm saying?
I think you should be able to. You should have to convict someone of a crime before you can seize their assets. That's my opinion.
Completely agree. See, that's the thing. So you're. Let's just say you're a messy a freedom fighter. I'm a messy freedom fighter from the right. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what makes.
I don't know. Look, no one would have ever accused me of being a leftist until I moved out to California. I mean, I actually worked on 2 Republican campaigns. I was very much a Republican in college. But after seeing, 60 years, or, really 60 or 70 years of failed economic policies from the Republicans, and really between January, 17th, 2017 and January 17th, 2020, before the coronavirus was a thing, the Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump increased the deficit faster than any administration prior and increased the debt faster than any administration prior. They're not fiscal conservatives. I'm a fiscal conservative. Republicans are not fiscal conservatives. And everyone wants to call me a lib, but I'm like, nah, I'm really just anti-Republican. So, and the other thing is,
many moons ago on fiscal conservative, because the Democrats or the Republicans, come on.
Here's the big thing that might surprise you. Well, it's not. I'm adopted. I'm 100% anti-abortion. Not that I want to make it illegal, but the Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency, right? For almost 2 years, and they didn't do a damn thing about it. Nothing. Not only that, they had 5 conservative justices that would have been sympathetic to hearing any case. They didn't attempt to pass anything until 1 year after they lost the House.
And same thing with the Democrats. 2009, they had both. They had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency, and
absolutely, it's utter hypocrisy. Like, abortion means nothing to Republicans. It's just a tool used to control people. It doesn't mean anything to Democrats. It's just a tool used to control people. I want to create the conditions in this country where women don't have to make that choice. Right. I don't know if your audience doesn't know, but I was given up for adoption when I was really young. I think everyone should have the chance to live like I did.
And having 2 half sisters who thankfully were not aborted, but were actually alive, and I'm a huge fan of that. But like you said, I'm not a fan of saying we're going to make it illegal and throw people.
No, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that. I want to create the conditions where that's no longer necessary.
But that's the interesting thing, just kind of going back to authoritarian stuff on not just law, but on government as a whole, is that it's a false dichotomy of left versus right. It was actually a circular thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, a horseshoe effect, where I think that the extreme on the right and the extreme on the left are both authoritarianisms. They just differ on who they want to tell what to do. That's all.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And that's the interesting. That's what scares the hell out of me, though. Going back to like the green.
Well, I'll tell you what really scares the hell out of me with the left is that almost all your good ideas come from leftists, no matter which party they're from. Because at one point, Republicans were pretty far leftist, but all your bad ideas come from leftists too. And the problem is that leftists aren't good at distinguishing between bad ideas and good ideas. That's the real problem with leftists, is they can't say, this is a good idea, but this one's probably pretty bad, right? Cancel culture, bad idea, right? So I just don't, yeah.
I just want to go back to just the Tesla stuff. So are you big on Tesla stuff? I mean, and I know, look, I'm just saying I'm not saying a recommendation, but do you think Tesla, what is it trading like 450 right now or something like that? I don't even know.
Yeah, 440 something. Yeah.
So it has a PE ratio of 1100. So just based on the earnings potential exploding because of batteries, does that mean that
I think they're going to end up licensing their technology. Have you ever read a story by Robert Heinlein called "Let There Be Light"?
I have not, but I'm a big fan of his for sure.
This is a short story. So "Let There Be Light." It was published in one of the magazines in 1940, one of the science fiction magazines that no longer exists. It's really a tragedy that they don't exist. But it's a story about a guy who invents the solar panels. I'm not going to ruin it for you. But this is before solar panels were invented. He actually wrote the story in like 36 or something. So before they were invented, and then so I'm gonna let you. I think that Elon Musk will probably end up licensing most of this technology at reasonable rates to competitors.
Licensing it and then making a profit off it, which will go into Tesla's share price.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be something that's probably negotiated by the government with him to save the big three and things like that. If you look at, back to Nikola, for instance, they claim to have this drivetrain technology. They claim to have, this battery technology. None of that existed. When they signed their deal with GM, their stock went up by like 41% a day or something like that. And then it crashed 2 days later when everyone realized with that deal that it was basically an admission of fraud at that point. They didn't have their own drivetrain technology. They didn't have their own battery technology. They agreed to use GM's technology. GM's technology is way far inferior to Tesla's drivetrain technology and battery technology. Their energy densities for their batteries are something like 40 to 50% less in some cases, and they don't last as long. There's all kinds of issues with that. Tesla's approach to battery research, like I said, isn't to create a new battery. It's been to use an existing technology and to make incremental changes or incremental improvements over time.
But what if
this one is the first big one?
What if it doesn't go the way we're hoping on battery?
I'm going to be horribly disappointed.
No, but
I'm going to be horribly disappointed.
I know, but I get that, but it's just I'm saying
it means the Russians and the Saudis are going to be politically relevant for a lot longer.
Well, how about I'm actually saying people own stock in it? Would they be just freaking? You know what I'm saying? Are they? I guess what I'm saying, Jason, are people who own Tesla stock now betting on this runaway opportunity that only Tesla will have and capture that? And if it's basically,
I wouldn't bet that only Tesla is going to be able to capture it. So if you live in the United States, the problem is we're really focused on the United States. There's 26 producers in China, EV producers in China, and they steal everything they can in terms of technology. There's 27 or 28 in Europe right now. Every major car manufacturer there, they all have government support. They've all committed to to a line of EV vehicles. So for the last 10 years, they really haven't had competition. All of that's changing now. Now they're really far ahead of the game in terms of their battery technology. They're light years ahead of the game in terms of artificial intelligence and data collecting now, and that's what a lot of people don't understand.
That scare you, the AI crap at all?
Yes. Yeah. I think that it's been a long been an axiom in science fiction that once artificial intelligence actually gains intelligence, the first thing it'll decide to do is that humans aren't necessary anymore. Does it scare me? Yes, I also think it's something you just can't stop anymore. It's like anyone that uses Amazon can't really complain about artificial intelligence. If you were on YouTube, we can't really complain about artificial intelligence, right?
Or friggin' the commies at Amazon or YouTube. I mean, or Google, I should say.
Commies, yeah. Are you one of those people who think that Democratic states Democrats or states are so much more poorly run than Republican ones?
That's putting a lot of emphasis on Republicans running states well. I don't trust the government as far as I could kick them Republican.
No. The communists are responsible for everything we're doing right now. from, well, not Zoom. Well, no, Zoom too, commies.
When I say being so, it's actually more fascist. So unless we got to admit this, that we have a big government telling.
I'm talking about YouTube was developed here in California. Zoom was developed in China. You're probably talking you're on an Apple, which was developed in California. I'm on an HP.
No, what I'm saying is that right
California.
now, though, the way the structure is, you have a big government, you have big business, and you don't have big labor. And it's corporatist, it's fascist. I mean, it's what we're in right now is a corporatist fascist way. And everyone thinks it's got to be brown shirts. No, it's just big.
I don't want big labor, but I would like bigger labor.
Me too. I do. 100%. I wish we had bigger unions. You want to get rid of fancy culture, you get back to unions, guaranteed.
One of the big problems with not my bar, but one of the problems with the other businesses that I own is that so few people can frequent them. Like, I charge a lot of money to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I charge a lot of money as a financial planner.
Yeah.
Very few people can afford what I charge. I'm not saying that to be exclusive. I'm saying that I want lots more people to be able to afford that. The problem is we have fewer and fewer people that are falling into the middle class here in California, largely because housing prices are just so high. And housing prices are just so high because capitalism has just run amok here. Housing prices are controlled by demand.
Wait, housing prices are high because capitalism is running amok?
Absolutely, man. Everyone wants to live here. And that in the military.
Did capitalism mandate photovoltaic panels on houses, new houses?
No, you think that's the reason housing prices are high? Housing prices are high.
That stuff contributes to it, absolutely.
That happened on January 1st, 2020. That happened on January 1st, 2020. My house was way expensive before that, and has everything to do with demand.
Okay, but you have also regulation that says, look, we have to increase the code, which increase the cost to build a house, which increase the cost to sell the house. I mean, that's
has everything to do with demand out here, Josh. Like, there's no reason why an 800 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house should be $2 million in San Francisco, but it is.
And that's capitalism?
Absolutely, it's capitalism. It's supply and demand, Josh.
No, what's price control, man? What's rent control? What's putting limits on building? That's not capitalism, baby.
So San Diego doesn't have rent control. I can charge whatever I want.
I guarantee you there's tons of zoning regulations in San Diego that says you cannot do this, you cannot do that. I guarantee, and I know for a fact.
Fewer than you think. In fact, they just changed rules to allow ADUs to be built pretty much in any backyard with expedited permits.
I don't know what an ADU is. What's that?
Basically, it's like a granny flat.
Good.
So like even a lot of places that have HOAs now are being forced to allow people to have ADUs or these. I can't even think of what the acronym means.
But why do you want the government to even say anything? I just say let the freaking people do it.
I don't. Like I said, I live in one of the few places.
But you were saying it's capitalism, which causes. I said no, it's a freaking lack of.
It's not. Josh, there's nowhere in most of these California cities. There's nowhere left to build.
Then you don't need regulations. Let them build wherever they want.
They really want. Like the city where I have my business in La Mesa, there are 2 undeveloped lots in the entire city.
Hey,
that's it.
Okay.
There's just nowhere left to build. So prices go up because of demand. I mean, and that's the thing.
I get that, but what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, you cannot give the government a free pass here, where they're increasingly regulatory environments. You can't just say
no. The government doesn't get a free pass. Like when I built I owned a boxing club years and years and years ago. I ended up paying like $40,000 just for the permits to build a bathroom.
To build a what?
To build a bathroom with 2 showers.
And capitalism for that?
40,000. Oh no, that's definitely government. That was $40,000 for the permits to do that. It was utterly ridiculous.
Anyway, so I got you. We're going off on that with California. Where are we going? Because I was going to ask you a follow up on that because I thought it was actually interesting. I want to hear your opinion on how do we get off on that tangent, Jason? I forgot.
I don't remember. We do that, Josh. We go on tangents.
So so are you ever going to get the hell out and move to Nashville? Like what's his name did from
No, it's or are you talking about Joe Rogan? He moved to Texas?
And a guy from Los Angeles, Ben Shapiro, I think, right?
Oh, Ben Shapiro. I certainly don't like paying 10% of my income to the state, especially last year. I had a really good year, and that 10% was a lot. It was more than many people make. And so that hurt, don't get me wrong, but there's so much going on here in terms of the new economy, especially here in San Diego with biotech. Biotech is something I'm fascinated with, but really don't know that much about. Like It's something that I invest in that through an ETF, rather than I'm not going to go out and pick individual
no,
stocks.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, every time I do, I pick losers. I'm better off doing that through an ETF.
I just bought some Exxon, baby, and of course, the minute I bought it,
Yeah, yeah. But
and
I mean, that's sort of
buying Exxon, I'm sure.
You bought it for that. Yeah, I'm not buying any Exxon. But I mean, I own Exxon, but I'm not buying anymore. But
I say you bought just because it's is oil. Oh no.
No, I worked for the oil industry. I worked for the oil industry for a long time. That's how I got my professional start in the finance business, working for.
Someone's saying Elon's moving to Texas, Jason. Is that true?
No, that's Elon's opening up a factory in Austin. They're also opening, and I've heard this from my Texas friends because that's where I'm from. They're like, "Oh, Elon's moving to Texas." I'm like, okay, then you have to say Elon's moving to Berlin. Elon's moving to China because he opened a gigafactory there. He opened one in Nevada and opened one in Oklahoma. And trust me, nobody wants to move to Oklahoma. Does anyone want to move to Oklahoma? Nobody.
Harry on one of my commenters.
No, I don't believe Harry now. I suspect everything he says is now suspect. So.
I was going to ask you. Someone said that are they closing all the nuclear plants in California? Someone had said that. Is that true?
They closed San Onofre, and I know that because I had a lot of those guys as my clients. And when they left, and that was really just on a cost thing. They kind of screwed up. There was an engineering mistake there in some cooling rods, not some cooling, some pipes ended up leaking some radioactive steam, and they just determined that it was going to be more expensive to fix the problem and deal with the publicity than it was to shut down the project. I think that's a tragedy. I really do. But yeah, and we have not replaced that power generation with any new power plant. That's the really bad thing.
My man Homer says, do you want to buy his house in the San Francisco Bay Area, Jason? He doesn't want to live here. He'd love to sell it to you.
Can't afford it. Who can afford it, man? It's like, I got a buddy of mine now. He works, actually, dude, he's a diehard communist, like a real, actual communist. And he laughs at when people call me a leftist or a red, because he's a real leftist. But he lives in a house with 8 other people in San Francisco, makes well over $100,000 a year in working for Tesla, by the way, and is broke. And it's just like, I understand you want to be in the center of action. I understand you want to be part of it. And he does get paid in company stock too. That's one thing. All employees of Tesla.
Wait, a commie takes company stock? How can I do that?
Exactly. And if you think about it, though, that's democratizing company ownership. That's owning the means of production, right? So I'm well versed in. I
got no qualm with that. I mean, I hate communism, but I got no qualm at all with the friggin' with a privatizing risk and the socializing profits if you need to do that through the employee stock ownership program, things like that. This guy's saying Tesla's moving their headquarters to Austin. Are you hearing that?
No, but look, here's my issue with Texas. 4 out of the top 10 companies in the S&P 500 are located here in California.
Yeah.
10 out of the top 30 are located here in California, and 20 out of the top 30 are located in 3 states: Washington, California, and New York. Right? This is where the new economies are being built. This is where the new technology is being built. Like this conversation right now, every piece of equipment, every piece of software we're using was developed right here in California. Companies that are moving from California to Texas are turning Texas into the China of the United States. This is the last stop before they offshore that business. They're moving there because of cheap labor and cheap real estate. That's really it. What Texans don't realize now is that these people aren't going to magically become diehard Republicans when they get there. Right? They're going to change the character of Texas. Texas is going to vote. Texas within a decade, it's going to be a Democratic state, for better or for worse.
I don't know.
I still own land in Texas, so
the immigrants from California to Texas actually voted 58-42 in favor of Ted Cruz in 2018. So they put Ted Cruz back in the Senate, the California immigrants.
So I know Ted Cruz personally, and I'm sure he's a good senator for Texas.
But I would say is at the end of the day, the immigrants, and we're using that term loosely, I grant you, but the people who relocated. I was going to ask you something real quick. Somebody had posted. Someone said, "Who the f are us? We're calling us losers. Why we talk about our crappy lives?" All right, so that's some of the. You ever do any live streams, Jason?
No,
You should,
no.
man. You're good at this stuff, man. It's
I actually, the first live stream I did with you was the last one, and I was like really nervous. I feel better now. I don't know what my
dude,
daughter's name is popping up right here. In there with the, yeah.
Oh,
my daughter's name is, yeah.
Okay. Hey, so all right, lastly, and then we'll let you get on out of here to go to dinner. I want to do a bet with you. We'll bet $500, but we're not going to pay off for 10 years. 10 years from now, I say we're going to actually have more coal and oil demand than we have now. And you say
demand. No, I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet.
I know you will, because you're saying we're going to have a whole hell of a lot less. So I'm saying,
no. I'll take that. And like I said, my main thing is, number one, I like to see less carbon in the atmosphere. I'd like to see less in the way of global warming.
Are you a vegan by chance? Are you a vegan?
Hell no, man.
So you eat beef?
Not just do I eat meat, I hunt. And
beef. I'm saying specifically.
Beef. Yeah, I mean, it's not only that. I bow hunt and all that stuff.
Why
so like, no.
I don't get it, man. I mean, because I'm sitting here said about methane. I mean, we know methane is such a big thing relative to CO2.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, that's something that I have a very good friend of mine who's a Jain. I don't know if you know who the Jains are. It's a religion from India, and they think that every living thing on the planet has a soul. Right. And so when I hang out with him, I eat vegetarian just because. He just never asked me to or anything like that. I just do when I'm around him and his family. And I've started to realize it's not as bad as I thought. I used to think that every meal had to include bacon. Yeah, but being vegetarian is not as bad as I thought. He's not a vegan. He's a vegetarian.
But if you're gonna gripe about CO2 and then you're gonna say, well, freaking.
It's more than that. Like after spending a lifetime of like hunting animals, grew up on a farm, slaughtered my own animals. I'm perfectly aware that they are sentient and have feelings and are aware that they're alive. And I have ethical concerns with killing animals, even though I do it all the time. Right. This is something that I could see myself from a moral perspective one day saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do it for health reasons.
The greenhouse gas of cows.
Absolutely. Greenhouse gas of cows is something I could definitely, that may be a reason why I stopped doing that eventually. All right, but the real reason I would do it is.
All right, so you don't like CO2, you don't like greenhouse gases. All right, gotcha. Yeah. And as such, you think because of the technology coming down the pike that we're going to have a significant reduction.
Yeah, I'll take that bet. 10 years from now, we're still going to be friends, Josh. 10 years from now.
Oh, dude, you're my man. So today's September 20th, 2020.
This is my sister's birthday, so.
Yeah, no, we'll get you out here, man. And then September 20th, 2030, you heard it here first. We're going to be using more carbon fuels.
You said more coal, more oil, more natural gas.
Using more. Oh, hell, I don't need to throw natural gas in there. Well, dude,
natural gas is quite a bit easier to deal with.
And it's anyway.
It's a lot cleaner.
We're using more coal and more oil than we do now, and you're saying not only we're going to use less, we're going to use significantly less.
Especially, I don't think we're going to be using coal at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's going to be gone. It's going to be a thing of the past, especially coal.
Oh my goodness! I'm so thinking, how did
oil? There may not be a way to eliminate it by 10 years, and maybe not ever. But coal will be done.
The guy asked a good question. He goes, Josh, worldwide or the U.S.? I'll definitely. We can say both. I'll say the world for sure, because going back to India, man, those freaking poor people in India, they need good old-fashioned fossil fuels. That's a fact, and they ain't gonna get on solar.
So Tata is already switching over to you know who Tata Motors is? They're already switching over to complete EV line, but the primary fuel source in India is actually cow dung.
Exactly.
Yeah. They burn cow manure for cooking fuel. And
primary source is cow dung and firewood, and we know what happens when you breathe that crap in, which is
it's actually the number one cause of death is indoor cooking in India.
But then why don't you love beautiful natural gas, baby?
I do love natural gas. I do love natural gas.
You did say that at the very outset. You said you were
especially with the natural gas power or generated electric powertrain. I do like that. For a couple of reasons. Number one, you can make it renewable. 40% of the natural gas we use today in shipping is actually renewable natural gas. So
renewable natural gas.
Yeah, made from decomposition of biological waste.
Oh, well, it sounds like biomass is what you're saying.
Like biomass. It's sticks, twigs, and
that's biomass.
waste from
That's literally
herbivores.
biomass right there.
Waste from herbivores, that sort of thing. But that's 40% of what we use today. And that's part of the research I did for that video. Yeah,
that's biomass, man. That's
biomass. I need to research what you said about the electrical grid.
That's fine. In fact, it's interesting because I tell you, Jason, and I'll promise this will be it. Well, I'll get you out of here. But when we, one of the things, if I ever get rich, I want to learn how to weld to create this thing called a gasifier. What a gasifier does, are you familiar with the term gasifier?
No.
Oh, it's nuts. It takes firewood and you burn it a certain way and you can convert that to electricity. Talk about, it's not very efficient. So it's not, it'll never take over. But talk about a wonderful renewable that you can power. Again, it's not efficient, but still it's fun. You can take firewood and turn it to electricity. I said, oh my goodness, how awesome is that? So everyone's giving you props, man. Everyone's saying this is fun. That my man Harry, who says we're all gonna be speaking Mandarin at some point. Harry, he said this was an A+ meeting, A+ debate, and we should do this more often. So
thank you.
Humor says, who won the debate, Josh or Jason? And then that's let's see. A lot of people think you're right that Texas will be going red. I was going blue. So a lot of people.
Not that I think that's a great thing, though. Don't get me wrong. Not that I think that's a wonderful thing. As I go.
Just think about it. Why, man? Why would you move to Texas and keep your politics? I don't get. Oh man. All right. Well, I'll let you. Jason's been fantastic. So remember, folks, you can watch Jason's. Are you going to do a video after the battery day for Tesla?
Oh yeah, I'll do a battery. But if I'm wrong, I got to admit that I'm wrong.
I'm going to put your YouTube channel up here again, Jason. So make sure everyone subscribes to Jason's Fighting Word Financial. Are you doing a blog or anything by chance, or just video?
No, I'm not as professional as you are, Josh. I haven't even done any affiliate marketing or anything like that. So it's like I just crossed the point where I can now be serious about my channel. So,
all right. So Fighting Words Financial, Jason it's just a good guy, man. So I appreciate you being here, brother. I'll let you get on to bigger and better things. And we'll post notes on the show notes again for how people to get to your channel tomorrow and
awesome.
Tonight. So appreciate it, man. Good stuff, Jason.
All right. Thank you, Josh. I'll see you later, buddy.
See you, man. Bye.